Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to season 13, episode 14, overall 674 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, located at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out their website, barrycullen.com, for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with their great selection of all-electric vehicles and Cadillac vehicles as well. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210 and tell them Chris Palme sent you, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been family-run and operated here in the city of Guelph since 1969 and has been a proud sponsor of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show for the past 3.5 years. Good morning, everybody, on this Monday, March 9th, 2026, and I'm looking forward to my guest today. He's a friend of mine, and this is his third appearance on our show, and his name is Joe Whitbread. He is the public address announcer for the Western Canadian Baseball League's Sylvan Lake Gulls. He's also an MC and the founder of Joe Social Media, and we're going to bring on Joe Whitbread right now. I'm going to talk a little baseball with him, too. Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Chris. Congrats on your 13th season. Great to be with you again.
Thank you so much. And it's exactly 6 years ago today that I started my new career into radio and media.
Yeah, wow. Congrats. I just celebrated 26 years here in the Central Alberta region and entrepreneurship myself. So I understand that we have to sometimes take stock of our successes, our accomplishments, because you and I both know along the way, there's not always successes, and sometimes we have setbacks.
Absolutely, Joe, and congratulations on 26 years. How the time just goes fast, doesn't it, nowadays?
Yeah, it sure does. I know you and my daughter are friends as well. She's in the sports biz, which we can chat about. But my daughter's having a baby. I'm going to have my first grandchild here in early spring. So you talk about time advancing. Time is moving pretty quick. But the baseball season is getting closer.
Well, please tell your daughter, Morgan, congratulations. And now you have a new Sylvan Lake Gulls fan on the way, too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And hopefully a Flames fan too, with apologies to your viewing and listening audience in Ontario. I'm a huge, staunch Flames fan, but that's actually a team issued jersey. I do some work for the Flames as well with announcing and other things. But a Flames fan, hopefully, and a Sylvan Lake Gulls baseball fan.
Exciting times with your grandchild coming. Now, do you guys know if it's going to be a boy or a girl yet? Have you guys cheated there?
Yeah, we do, actually. My daughter's an influencer online, as I am. Social media, sports entertainment, all part of our world. And so she did a massive reveal, which apparently is the thing you do now. So, we do know it's going to be a boy. And obviously I couldn't be more excited. I've got 2 sons, 1 daughter, and now a grandson on the way.
Well, congratulations. Now, what date is she expected?
One day before our home opener, to put it bluntly. So, our home opener for Gulls season is May 28th, and she'll be she's due. At least that's what the map of the calendar says is on May 27th. So, I'm really hoping, Chris, this baby is not overdue because we start our season with a homestand.
The timing is amazing. And by the way, how many years have you been the Gulls public address announcer? And have you even missed one game in your career?
All of them. We actually are one of the newest teams in the WCBL. So we started in 2021. And to answer your question, I've never missed a game since inception. We play just under 40 home games a season. Over the past couple of seasons, we've hosted other teams' home games because of our spectacular stadium and ballpark. And we can get into the makeup of the WCBL, which is Saskatchewan and Alberta. There's some small market teams. We're considered a small market team, but because of our feeding area here in central Alberta, right near Red Deer, if you're looking for it, just in between Calgary and Edmonton, the Sylvan Lake Gulls also host other teams' home games on occasion because we can draw a fan base and really create some revenue for some of these ball clubs. But yeah, to answer your question, I've been at every single game since 2021, and that is all of them, every single game for the Sylvan Lake Gulls.
By the way, I've had a number of professional public address announcers on my show, and there's one from the St. Louis Blues, Tom Cahoon. He hasn't missed a game since 1987, and I told Tom that is absolutely amazing, and it's just shows you how much these guys are passionate about what they're doing.
They're passionate about what they're doing, and I think what often gets lost, Chris, and I'm the same. I was in the Western Hockey League with the Red Deer Rebels for 21 seasons, and in 21 years, I had only missed 4 games. The reason I had missed those 4 games was birth of children and out of town as a result of kids in sports. So I believe that's a good reason to miss the profession. Certainly not pro, but Western Hockey League, part of the Canadian Hockey League, 21 seasons. So what's missed in a lot of this, this diligence and certainly passion is what's missing sometimes on their personal lives. The amount of people in our lives that have to contribute when we're missing from home life or kids' life or other things, as long as you provide and continue to be a demonstrative example for kids, for spouses, and you're still a good human, then I don't mind these professions that take you into professional sports leagues or even 2 weeks at the Olympics or the Paralympics that are on while we broadcast this show, as long as you're still providing. And I think I've done that in my career, and I really, really applaud those professionals who have been in their role for a very long time and never missed a game, provided they're a huge part of the home life and especially the raising of kids.
By the way, since you were talking about junior hockey, the Memorial Cup will be in Guelph in 2027 as well. And it hasn't been in Guelph in 25 years. So that is going to be a big deal for this area and how much money it will generate for the whole city and the area as well.
Yeah, I was really fortunate to be a part of the 2016 Memorial Cup hosted in Red Deer. The London Knights ended up winning that Memorial Cup with Mitch Marner and some really superstar lineup. But I can tell you the Memorial Cup adds obviously an influx into a local economy. But much like a CFL Grey Cup, a host city, it really does bring an inspiring and energetic fan base from around the country. So I know that your fans and the leadership group in Guelph are really going to enjoy that tournament. They have done a fantastic job over the years.
By the way, you mentioned the Calgary Flames. How excited? I think that was my issue there. I apologize. Joe, you still there?
Yeah, sorry. I've got you now,
everybody,
Chris.
just bear with me. Unfortunately, hopefully we'll get Joe back.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Okay. Joe, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Chris.
Yeah, I do apologize. Our technology, when it works, is great sometimes. Okay. I wanted to ask you, the Flames, obviously they're not having the greatest year, but how excited is the city and the province about having a new arena?
Yeah, the new arena has been a really, it's a bit controversial in many ways provincially. I won't get into the politics of it, but there are some, taxpayers have had to foot the bill for a large pro sports team arena. That did not happen when Daryl Cates built the Rogers Place in Edmonton. So there's in true Alberta fashion, the Oilers and the Flames and their fans don't like each other. And so now Albertans around the province who are Oilers fans don't like that their tax dollars are going into a new arena. But again, I won't get political. It is much needed. Oldest arena in the NHL, the Saddle Dome. I go there quite often. It is old. It does not meet the standards like Detroit or Anaheim or New Jersey or Edmonton has. And so there's a huge excitement for Flames fans, but also for those who understand economic opportunity. And in Calgary, this new arena will bring on much, much more than hockey. It's going to bring on, global events, possibly Olympic bids, obviously World Cups and other things. So anyway, it's very exciting.
Now, as for the Calgary Stampeders, I do some media coverage for the CFL and the Argonauts. Is there a chance the Stampeders could get a new stadium in the next few years as well? Because McMahon Stadium is kind of obsolete nowadays.
Yeah, it's a bigger question for bigger and much more important people than me, but you're right. I know that there is a lot of pushback in our province for infrastructure builds that only seem to provide for private organizations, especially those in professional sport. You're right. McMahon Stadium is very old. It's part of the University of Calgary campus. It was built for and as a part of the '88 Olympics, just to put it in age perspective. And so you're right, that infrastructure needs improvement, especially in a CFL that requires better buildings, better fan entertainment, and all the rest. However, we live in an economy, both in this province and yours and others who are listening, where money doesn't grow on trees for us. And so why should it grow for professional athletes or those who are deemed to be professionals? So it's a difficult conversation and a difficult build.
About these new arenas, new stadiums, and stuff like that, without getting into politics. And Joe, that's a show I could do an hour or two show on alone. Why should taxpayers always have to pay for these billionaire stadiums as well? But sports now, it's a business too. And even in the Western Hockey League, the OHL, the Quebec Junior Hockey League, all these arenas now have to be brand new because these OHL teams, CHL teams, Western Hockey League teams, it's a business. It's huge business nowadays too.
It's big business. And, for those who didn't get the memo, sports is now entertainment. And by the way, I don't say that in jest. There's many, many people that still believe sports is sports. And obviously the game on the field, the game on the ice is sport. But if you don't recognize from an insider's perspective, which I get the opportunity to be, that this is entertainment and entertainment equals engagement, no different than social media. You can post all you want, but if you don't have entertainment, information, learning, social media doesn't get engagement. And sports is the same. Your Jumbotron, your seat comfort, even things like cup holders, and of course championships drive ticket sales and revenue. And if you are a sports fan, which clearly you are, if you listen to this show, you should start recognizing that your entertainment dollar, not your sports dollar, is what should be driving revenue for these clubs.
And Joe, before we get into Joe's social media, every professional sports team now, even in junior hockey, every sports league has to have social media specialists because that is huge now, social media. If your team or franchise is not on social media, you're well behind in the game nowadays.
Well, yeah, and this just simply comes down to where we consume things. I could say the exact same thing in 1952 about television coverage. Or radio coverage. Every sports team, when you or I grew up, anyone listening in Generation X and older, wanted to follow their team. That's the blanket statement, full stop. If you want to follow your team, then you have to be on the broadcast channels that allow you to do that. And we can all think back to Hockey Night in Canada. When television became a thing, we put hockey on television. And you say a social media specialist, but what's often forgotten is many of these pro franchises have a social media team because content drives engagement, content drives reaction, content drives revenue. And revenue is bums and seats, merchandise sales, ticket sales, sponsorship and advertising, all driven by what you're seeing on a reel or a TikTok. And those don't create themselves. You need editors, you need producers, you need hosts and on-camera influencers. And so social media specialist, there isn't one person anymore within any pro organization that runs the social media. That would be impossible. When you have people who want to follow on Snapchat, you need a Snapchat expert and the team to provide the content. Sometimes that content's the same on TikTok as it is on Snapchat, but it has to be spoken in the Snapchat language, just like an Instagram is different than a Facebook. And so these social media specialists, unfortunately, for someone like me, has really been depressed in its value because everyone on every street corner is now a social media expert. We all have social media. We all follow social media. So we must all be experts. And I completely and totally disagree with that. There's an expertise to the platforms, to the algorithm, to each individual expertise platform, no different than journalists aren't podcasters. Journalists who took schooling and professional advice and education in a career are not podcasters. With all due respect to someone who can buy a microphone and a camera online, we have to understand that people like you are in journalism. You are creating engagement and a story. And just like these professional sports teams, putting out a silly reel of players coming onto the ice saying what they ate for supper last night is fun, but it has a purpose. And that purpose is revenue generation, interest in the team, and the creation of profits in everything from merchandise to ticket sales.
And how I got my sponsor, Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership, to come on 3.5 years ago is because they like my work, but also the fact that I'm on 21 platforms, both video and audio, including TikTok. And I can also go into the dealership and cut promos there as well. And the fact I don't have a hat on today, but I wear 10 or more different hats doing this show, and social media is one of the biggest jobs there too, because the on-air stuff is the easiest part, but I need to download these shows onto my social media, reels and clips, and also promote my guests as well. I learned how to cut promos from TikTok. So you always hear the negative aspects of social media, but if you use it the right way, it can help you get into a new career.
Yeah, absolutely. Social media is so far-reaching. We can't even talk about it in its entirety. What's really fascinating and almost sad is we have an entire generation lost. In the future, we'll know this, who weren't taught social media. And what I mean by that, I want to clarify: our generation, Generation X and older, we're on the cutting edge of digital devices, let alone social channels and the marketing that goes with them. And that means our generation, just like every other form of education, would teach the next generation. And unfortunately, we're going to be a generation behind because the next generation has had to learn it on their own simultaneous to Gen X. So we're going to be 2 generations behind in learning from demonstrative or people who actually understand. And again, this analogy can be stretched to any other form of education. When you learned math or sciences or anything post-secondary, you learned it from people typically older, more mature, and with lifetime experience. Social media had no lifetime experience. The people older than us couldn't teach it. And so very few of us are actually teaching a platform model. Instead, what we're seeing, and we can see this in the content that we consume, we can see that there's an actual live, on the fly version of what social media marketing has become. Unlike standard 30-second television commercials and radio commercials, unlike full page or quarter page ads in print, unlike bus benches, transit shelters, or billboards on the highway. Those traditional channels had teachings, and so advertising had a structure. Advertising has no structure anymore because it wasn't taught in the same structure. It's been rogue, and if someone thinks that a 3-minute video or a 33-second video is the way to get more views, accumulate response, and more importantly, get ROI for their business interests, then that's the way that we move forward. So it's a really fascinating time in marketing and advertising, but the content you're consuming, even right now, the content you're consuming is and should drive ROI for the brand that's producing it.
And Joe, when I started this 6 years ago, my show was just strictly sports. But in the last few years, I've evolved, and it's still a sports show. but I also have diverse guests and topics. So I'm just trying to be as diverse as I can. And I think it's great because my other career in security, I had to learn how to talk, listen, and also deal with different situations. And I had to interview people from all walks of life. And that's what I love about this show. I think I've grown over the 6 years, but I've also become diverse. And this platform is welcoming to anyone that has a career or a story they'd like to share on this platform as well.
Yeah, and that's very obvious in your shows. Remember also that people don't watch full shows. We don't have time, unfortunately, in our lives necessarily. And so it's the promos, it's the TikToks, it's the Instagrams, it's all of those promos you're cutting with Barry Cullen and others that allow you to earn a trust. Our brand is always on display until it's not. And when it's not, it's on display. And I've always loved to teach that in my high school or middle school learnings. We walk down the hall in high school or middle school, in many cases, either trying to hide or trying to impress. There's two kinds of kids in a school: trying to hide from reality and life. We're scared. We don't know it at the time. We're going to act a certain way to be as authentic as we can be. But unfortunately, authentic doesn't necessarily jive with most high schools or growing up. And that just comes to, once you grow up, you realize it's a real judgmental and sometimes a negative place. The other kind of person is someone who does know who they are or thinks they do. You know, you can think of the jocks or someone in sort of a pompous or, and that's not a negative word, a bombastic attitude, walking through the halls and owning the place. Boys, girls, what happens in both cases is there's a false authenticity or a real authenticity that is a steady presence. And we think of this in social media too. You are always on display for your brand until you're not. But when you're not, that's also your brand. Invisibility is a cloak that does not do anything for marketing and advertising. So if you think you need an opportunity, maybe a new job or climb the corporate ladder, or you want things, which, by the way, pro tip, everyone wants things. Everyone wants a better opportunity. Everyone wants a bigger paycheck. Everyone wants to earn and be and do their passionate job like you get to do every day, like I get to do every day. But if you want these things, social media can be your conduit to being the brand. Doesn't mean you're bombastic. It doesn't mean you are, nefarious in your authenticity. And it doesn't mean you're hiding or invisible. There's a steady balance of knowing who you are, being who you are, and telling us about it.
And Joe, also being aware of trends. I've constantly, when I'm doing media work, I'll talk to the younger media and pick their brains about trends and what's going on. It was high school I speak to once a month as well. And I've also, Joe, learned YouTube Shorts and TikTok. I've learned that 30 seconds or even 15-second videos do more. So I've kind of got into the YouTube Shorts, the TikTok videos, the shorter content as well. So I basically, what I'm saying is I'm trying to keep ahead and stay in touch with today's trends as well.
Yeah, and you can drive yourself crazy too, Chris, as you know, with keeping in touch with trends. I deal a lot in my business for the past 15 years with businesses who want to stay on top of the latest trend. You cannot, full stop, you cannot stay on top of the latest trend. And nobody also wants to see copycat content. Trends were started somewhere. So I'm a little bit of a different thinker on trends. I understand trending platforms and going where something's popular. That does make sense. The populist angle has been adopted by many a politician. We can think back to national campaigns, both here in Canada and in the United States, where, someone of major stature, goes to a youth platform. But there's also a cringe factor, as we all know, to the trend. There are some places where people don't belong. I could show you 1,000 young school children who are in a cafeteria, and it is a crazy, wonderful place. I get to speak in those schools like you do too. That is no place to sell vehicles. And so your sponsor or any of the competitors wouldn't go in, obviously, to a school cafeteria and try to sell cars. There's a cringe factor to that. And so I use the same justification on social media. If you're trying to create and build content for an audience, but you're not in the audience you should be, then you're actually just chasing a trend, which has a cringe factor.
Totally agree with you, Joe. And I just try to be myself. When I'm on TikTok, YouTube, I just create my content and try to be myself. Because when you try to copycat other people, people can see that through and through. Just like my shows. When I have my guests on, Joe, such as yourself or anyone else, I talk to my guests like we're at a coffee shop or we're at a mall or something like that. I don't try to be somebody that I'm not. And Eric Smith of the Raptors and Chuck Swirsky gave me the best advice. And I think their advice has kind of helped me over the years as well. Because when I first started this show 6 years ago, everything was scripted and everything. I wasn't very good, to be honest. And Eric Smith, Chuck Swirsky, and a number of guests that have come on have given me some like tips and some feedback. And I've kind of applied that and tried to improve myself, evolve over the years. And I still have a lot more learning and improving to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of my things I do on a daily basis are a result of mentorship, leadership, and people who entrusted me with their advice. And I think we're better people professionally and personally when we take that advice. We live in a very divisive world right now where politically, obviously, we don't take the advice. In fact, the other side is our enemy. And I don't believe in that. There is something to be learned. Doesn't mean you have to change your opinion, but there's something to be learned by someone else's opinion, even as dastardly as you might think it is. We can also watch in that opinion an action. And so there's plenty to be learned here in broadcast, here in journalism, over my years on television, on radio, way before social media and digital existed, on things like stage presence for my public speaking, or even on camera presence, making eye contact with the camera, because the camera are your viewers right now. And many people are looking at their screen. But if I were looking at my screen right now, making eye contact with you on my screen, how does that feel right now to all of your viewers? I mean, I'm not looking at them, I'm looking at you, but my brain tells me I'm making eye contact with someone. Unfortunately, the someone is a little pinhole camera in my computer, just like on yours. So one of the greatest pieces of advice I learned is always make eye contact with the audience, but the audience doesn't exist on things like Zoom or Google Meets or any of these on-screen FaceTime channels. And so we have to look at the camera. And I learned that long ago, being on a Jumbotron to tens of thousands of people.
Joe, when I was younger, I did not like public speaking. I was always the kid that would sit in the back of the classroom. Teachers would have to drag me in front of people, and I was not comfortable. But the last, I don't know, maybe not even 10 years, now I'm very comfortable being in front of a camera. Or like you said, when I'm speaking to high school students, I make sure I use eye contact and look at the entire room, not just have tunnel vision and look at one area as well.
Yeah, and good news, Chris. You're exactly like everyone else. Spiders, snakes, and public speaking. And I say that with full respect. The people who grow up are not taught stage presence. They're not taught that the front of the room is a safe place. Instead, we're taught to sit at the back of the bus on a school bus. We're taught to sit at the back of the room because it's cooler. We all see and know all of these movies and now memes of the bad kids sitting at the back of the room, sending spitballs or notes up to the front. I'm the opposite. I always was, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I'd rather sit near or at the front so that I get the best rendition of my education. I'd rather sit at or at the front of the bus or the plane so that I can easily get off of the plane. These are pragmatic, but also really responsible decisions that, I get it, sometimes aren't considered cool when you're a kid. And here in broadcast, I have always been the one to reach out. If anyone asks me for a podcast appearance, whether they're a young person, a dignified leader in their broadcast, whether it's 100,000 episode, 15-year podcast, or it's someone just trying it out with their Amazon equipment. We don't say no because I provide you the opportunity with clicks and viewership, and obviously it benefits me and friendship, above all else.
like a lot of the media opportunities, I was at a butter tart festival this weekend and I didn't say no to it. I went down there and I ended up doing 4 or 5 different interviews with different people and connecting with people and giving out my business cards and letting people know who I am and what my product is as well, Joe. So I've had to learn to be a better salesperson as well and get out there and get my face out in front of people and stuff, and getting to do interviews in person. I enjoy as much as I do in the virtual interviews. So I'm trying to be as flexible and accommodating as possible. And just, I love doing what I'm doing, meeting people as well.
Yeah, good for you. And the best sales is marketing. Marketing oneself. And I don't care what anyone says. So many people, in fact, the vast majority of adults listening or watching this program would say they are very, very glad social media was not around as an adolescent or a teenager. And the reason they're saying that is because of the bad things or the semi-bad things, the bad choices that adolescents make. Guess what? I'm the opposite. I wish social media was around when I was a younger person, because I was responsible. I had great leadership. I had a wonderful parent group that taught me what's right and wrong. But I also learned about personal branding because I had 2 public figures. My parents were public figures. So you hear about this in hockey, bloodlines, the name on the back of the jersey in this part of the world. The Sutter family is a massive hockey family right here where I'm from. They come to Gulls games all the time, and obviously a massive component of the Rebels and the Flames and so many others. Those Sutter kids, and eventually the other Sutter kids and the other Sutter kids, they had a name on the back of their jersey. They had to act a certain way. And so I think one of the biggest lessons that can't be taught is that the name on the back of your jersey is always visible, especially in a social media world. And so what many people actually choose is to not be there. And I think that's the wrong decision. I think it's the wrong decision. Obviously, you have to have something to say. You have to have a motivation or a motive. But if you have those things, if that motive is skill development, communications opportunity, building new opportunity, new jobs, places you want to work instead of places you have to work, then you do have an opportunity. You do have a motive. And that motive is daily presence or weekly presence that allows us to trust you, not to sell to us, but to trust you. This is what marketing has been built on for hundreds of years. And now we are what's marketed. And so when you adopt this strategy, and it's a true strategy, it's not easy to write about yourself or to program yourself. And certainly there's a judgment. It comes down to bombastic or conceit or somehow, people who envy you, people who are jealous of you will also hate on you. And that's why, unfortunately, there's a vileness to the internet. I'm sure you've dealt with it. I have too.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to promote or self-promote. I'm here to provide opportunity. And all you have to do is listen to the content coming out of my mouth in this and other channels that I'm on, helping people, speaking in schools to kids like you, joining into podcasts, being a part of a conversation for improvement in marketing. This is helping other people. And I happen to be that exact same person that you're following online. We don't have a problem following Taylor Swift. We don't hate on her. We don't hate on Gary Vee, who's a marketing genius in New York who owns the Jets. But somehow we hate our local people who are trying to help because they're just trying to do their passion like you are. And I don't like that. So I stand against that. I take my hat off to everyone like you who's giving this the best they can every day, because in the end, it's not about money. It's not about the resources we earn. It's about the passion and the daily life that we want to have. And looks to me like you're doing that. I certainly am.
Well, thank you, Joe. And every opportunity I've gotten with the CFL, the NFL, even the Super Bowl, which was unbelievable, I've had to work for. I've earned. Nothing has been given to me. And I'm self-taught, self-employed, but I've also had to work hard for my opportunities and connections and networking as well. So I tell younger people that are getting into podcasting or they want to get into media, obviously schooling is important, but in my case, I did it the old traditional self-taught way, but you still have to have a passion, but you also have to put in the work and you have to put yourself out there. 6 years ago when I started this show, I had all my settings to private, and a couple of guys that were in podcasting gave me some advice. Chris, you want to get into radio media, you have to take your private settings off and put it into public settings. And majority of people have been great when I've done it, but you're also going to get sometimes people who don't agree with you. And on my show, I've had some guests on. I don't necessarily agree with their opinion, but I let them air it. I want people to express themselves on here as well. So this is an open platform for people for good conversation. I just want to provide a good talk show, good storytelling, and learning every show. And that's kind of my motto on here. Whoever my guests on, I treat every show that like I'm on a traditional radio station.
Yeah, you have to, we learned as kids to dress for the job you want, not for the job you have, to earn opportunities through a good handshake, eye contact. Yes, please. Yes, ma'am. We learned that. I know there's a new version of that, but still this Canadian approach to opportunity. Why we stopped doing that on social media, why anyone thought or thinks it's a good idea to jump in a comments section, even if you have an alias, even if you're a hidden troll on the internet, why on earth would anyone want to impact negatively the mental health of a content provider, whether they're a major brand that'll never respond, some celebrity team or individual that somehow you don't like, even if it's a politician that you are staunchly against? Why anyone thinks it's a good idea to jump in, alias or real, to a comment section to generate or create negative mental health for someone, because that's what negative comments do for people whose goalposts are a little bit different. We're in the public, so we can't do that. The name on the back of my jersey, just like the Sutter family, exists. And so we can't do that, nor would we, because we learned about this media training. Guess who's the media now? We're the media now, not just you and me, Chris, because we're on camera and people are consuming our content. We, anyone who has a phone in their pocket and a part of social media, which is almost everyone, you're a member of the media now. The only difference is you don't have media training. And that is a huge component. Imagine a world full of dentists without certification. Imagine a whole room full of doctors and nurses who just picked up a device, downloaded an app, and became a doctor. We would never imagine that. You have to go to schooling. You have to learn the craft. You have to take media training to be in public office or public life or on the radio, television, or a podcast. However, everyone has a phone. So we have a whole bunch of dentists practicing without a license. We have a whole bunch of people in media whose goalposts are completely different than all of ours. And frankly, it's not fair, because this is what creates the false and fake news. This is what creates AI slop on the internet. Because if you took media training, you'd recognize authenticity matters, not pretend, false, fake, or clickbait.
Joe, one thing too, even though I'm self-taught, I also fact check everything I do. I try to be consistent and accurate. And also when I do pro sports teams, either with CFL, the NFL, or local teams, there's someone there that's been doing it longer than me and has more experience. I'm not afraid to ask some questions and pick their brains as well.
Yeah, certainly. And that's what these podcasts have taught you as well. The guests that are on here are certainly accomplished, some much more than you and I, others equal to, others who are up and coming. And that's what's so great about society. But social media is just a microcosm. You can learn from everyone you speak to. And that's how yours and my friendship has developed over the years. There's opportunities that I can provide for you, even though I'm geographically a long ways away, and vice versa. And so why we have this divisiveness? I mean, it's very frustrating to someone like me, an empath. I don't understand it, but I also kind of do, because people who are hurt or who have been hurt or who have experienced trauma, bullying, even deeper and darker, trauma, very typically want to react in a way that causes someone else to feel their pain. And so I understand that hate on the internet typically sparks from someone who has been hated in real life or on the internet. And so I feel bad for that. But if you're listening to this and this strikes a chord at all, I would love a reaction or a message. I'm a safe space for kids, for young people. I have to be in my career and my profession. And if any of this sparks a chord, I appreciate the follows. Hurt people like to hurt people, but the opposite is also true. People who have joy in their heart, people who want to encourage, people who had a great upbringing of trust and love and a hug every now and then, they want to give one. And so while one thing happens, there's always an equal and opposite reaction.
And Joe, I've done a lot of shows on bullying and harassment and various subjects. And I've had people at the end of the show actually come up to me and say, thank you so much. And it's just amazing that this platform and show has helped a few people. And I've had strangers come up to me in Toronto, come up and shake my hand and tell me how much they like my show and my media work. And it just makes me feel good. I'm not doing it to get a pat in the back, but it's just impacting other people's lives. That's another reason why I do this, because I want my show to maybe reach out to people who need to hear things or to learn about stuff. And I'm just very lucky here.
Well, I'm very grateful to be a guest on that show, because I'm providing the content in this particular show, and there'll be someone else providing a different form of content in a different show. So I'm really grateful to be a part of something like this.
Joe, can you just tell us a little bit about the latest with Joe's social media?
Sure. Joe Social Media was started in 2012 in our province of Alberta, where I'm speaking to you from. It was the very first social media agency. I know that might sound weird, but almost 15 years ago, there was no agencies in charge of being the conduit to Facebook or the Meta platforms. Instagram barely existed. TikTok did not exist. Snapchat was a channel on the internal that wasn't doing marketing. There were no geofences or marketing opportunities for businesses. So I started something a long time ago. When I think about it, I always use the comparison of dog years. Any of your pet owners, your dog owners, recognize that their dog in human years is much older. We call them 12, but dogs age much faster. Social media is the same. Almost 15 years in social media doesn't even sound a lot when you've got, major fast food or restaurant or retail chains celebrating 100 years. But this has only been around for this long. And when I say this has been around, social media as an industry has been around this long, but there's new platforms evolving every year. And so the social media psychology component, social media marketing, which is very vastly different, obviously, than traditional media, I started in this province. I was the first one to put my neck out. So Joe Social Media has done an incredible job at 3 different areas. Obviously, in social media management, there are so many people who have a phone, sign up for an account, they've got an Instagram or a Facebook, but they would admit they don't know how to use it. Sure, they can put out a post. Anyone can put out a post or take a picture, but how to actually use it strategically to generate a response. I always use the example in the 60s or 70s, if you could, just like social media, have a radio station or a printing press in your home office, you wouldn't need the newspaper. You wouldn't have needed a television or a radio station, but we didn't have that ability. Towers cost millions of dollars, and licensing from the CRTC in our country, you couldn't have a radio station. Now you can. And so social media allows the broadcast to be in your hands. At the same time, that doesn't automatically give you the post-secondary education in advertising, in marketing, in communications, in public relations. And so we are living a really wicked and terrible time right now for professionals like me who have this training, post-secondary and otherwise, watching people pick up an Instagram, create an account, and they're magically a communications professional. They're not. And so we offer that service. The second thing we offer is training. If you can't hire someone to do it, no different than hiring a radio station or someone to build a billboard, which is the traditional way of advertising. You would never design your own billboard if you didn't have graphic design talents. You would never take your own photographs if you didn't have photography talents, or edit your own video if you didn't have editing or videography talents. Now, everyone seems to have these talents. So we can teach you these talents as well, and help you create a strategy. And then the third thing we do is public speaking. I'm traveling about 2.5 hours north to speak in a elementary school. There's one a week at this time in the spring, and moving towards June, teaching kids about proper device etiquette, online performance, where it matters to their brand that they don't know they'll have yet, why thinking about being a good citizen online is really, really important in grade 9 and 10, because grade 12 does happen. This is a really difficult thing for kids to learn, which is why I also teach adults. And then, of course, I do public speaking in this sort of area as well, which is business influence, offering people a different perspective of what's important rather than what they're actually watching or doing. I think that's vital. You might be doing something right now in career, in life, in passion, but if the actual doing doesn't have a strategy, then what are you doing it for? And that's fine if you're doing it for happiness, if you're doing it for passion, but if you're doing it for a bottom line and you're not creating a strategy for that bottom line, then what are you doing it for? Passion? Great. Passion doesn't pay the bills. So I also offer opportunities for young entrepreneurs, for business owners, in these sorts of fields. Thanks for asking. Joe, social media is a really, really great brainchild of mine that's grown, just like your podcast has, into so many other things. And I'm really, really proud of it.
How much would you say you've evolved, improved over the years?
I improve every day. I improve today speaking to you, and no doubt the comments section and the direct messages from this show. You have to improve. Social media has improved immensely, obviously. Steering from simple text in formerly Twitter to adding photos, to adding GIF images, to adding moving images, the point system that all of these channels have. By the way, your points matter to Chris and this show right now. They also matter to his sponsor. If you can't donate and give money to his endeavor, that's totally fine. But your likes matter, your reactions matter, whatever channel you're watching on. A follow matters to him and to me. These are our not monetary, they're not monetary, but they're free for you to give, and they matter. So improving is what I do. But helping others improve is what I love.
Are your sessions all in person, or do you do some virtual sessions with your clients as well?
Oh yeah, of course. Always, that's like asking a pizza place if I have to come down and pick it up, right? If you're not willing to go where your audience is, then are you really offering something for your audience, or are you offering it for you? So yes, obviously, anyone who reaches out geographically not near me, we can set up one-on-ones. I'm in boardrooms virtually all the time, offering sales training on social media. There's so many commission salespeople or people who have a quota to fill for their job that are on LinkedIn but have no idea how it works. I've been teaching LinkedIn longer than all of the other platforms. And yes, gladly do all of these online.
Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's 3 words to describe yourself as a public speaker?
Engaging, humorous, and intelligent. Those just came to me. I'm engaging. I've sat in many a boardroom, many a conference, and heard information or fact from a speaker's mouth, but it's just lame. And no offense to that speaker, but part of public speaking is in intonation, it's in vocal range, it's in the way we act, even sometimes in the way we dress. You have to read the room, and you have to arrive in that room in a way that's going to be engaging, because keeping people awake is sometimes more important than the actual facts you're delivering. I'm humorous as well, maybe not in this interview, but I certainly have a love for the entertainment or flourish side of my business. And so you'll hear humor, you'll hear that mixed in with analogies, you'll hear that mixed in with intellect. And that's the last one, intelligence. I think it's so vital that we advance some of these lower or depressed industries that are coming along with intelligence. I think it's unfair to a young generation that social media was invented with this silliness, or kids are on their phones, or it's just a time waster. I can tell you, as a professional in social media, it's not a time waster, it's my career. So I really find it difficult to speak with young people, post-secondary, early years, even teachers who are teaching or educating our next generation, to depress or downplay the brand of social media. We have to speak with it in intelligence, because 99% of people posting to social media, unfortunately, are posting this stuff that I'm talking about, online slop. But less than 1% of us, we're doing it with strategy, and the slop that you think you're consuming is actually earning click-throughs, revenue, generation of opportunity. This is the intelligence I speak with. So those are the three things that I would go with.
And Joe, even when I'm taking a day off, I'm out and about in public, and I see something that I think would make good content for my show and my content on social media, I will take out my phone or my little microphone. I will do an in-spot interview or film something as well. So I'm always continuing to think of ideas for good content, and that's what I try to do on my TikTok and all my social media platforms.
Yeah, we always have to be thinking social, and that goes to brand as well. Remember that I keep talking about the final product. The final product is a tiny percentage of what we do. And so one of the things when we're thinking social is, are we on brand when we deliver that content? If we're shooting or editing something else, does the edit represent the brand we want to put forward? It's easy to see a moose crossing a Canadian highway, and we can film it and put it online. But if the way we shoot it is behind the wheel, when we shouldn't be texting and driving, we shouldn't be on our camera phones right now. Yeah. Our brand is a professional one or represents our employer. And all of a sudden that great piece of content just went against our brand, which is against the law and a lawbreaker. And so the other thing about thinking social isn't just in the final product, it's in the way we convey ourselves. Before I go on camera every single time, I make sure that I represent my brand. My brand is something that I've created. You may not notice a difference. But I do. And over time, through drip content, through steady and consistent strategy, you should see the same person that you can learn to trust. And this is one of the key elements in personal branding that I teach in school, but also to professionals. We see a lawyer dressed a certain way. We see a money manager or a mortgage professional driving a certain vehicle. These, unfortunately, are stereotypes, but those stereotypes actually perpetuate a reality. Don Cherry loved it when hockey players showed up to the rink in a suit and tie. That brand has continued over the years because we're not the NBA. We're not the NFL. We are the NHL, and this is how we arrive to the rink. And so that brand may not be a personal choice of that player or that player, but the league requires that branding because the league brand is how these players are getting paid. When you adopt that strategy into how you shoot or perform your content, when you adopt that personal strategy from someone up here all the way to this tiny little brand that you are or I am, you start realizing that you can be exactly what you want to be.
Joe, have you thought about publishing a book in the future?
I sure have. I appreciate you saying that. That's absolutely on my bucket list. I want to do it immediately. As an entrepreneur in multiple jobs and roles, as you've heard, for anyone who's listened to this, that can be very difficult. I hate using the excuse of I don't have time. I have to find time, and I appreciate that you'd even ask. Yes, I would love to publish a book. There's a book or two in me.
Joe, for those people that are watching this show live stream or later on audio platforms, and they're looking to do some public speaking, what are some good tips for somebody that's just getting into public speaking?
Well, the great thing, I love that question. One of the, a teenager trying to get a job, we've always, how do you get experience if you don't have a job? And how do you get a job if you don't have experience, right? We all learned that as young people, and it's fair. Your first job is going to likely have to be menial. And when we take that to public speaking, how on earth do you promote yourself as a public speaker if you've never had a gig public speaking, or the only time you've done public speaking was a wedding or that unfortunate time you had to speak at a funeral? So public speaking now can be showcased. You're doing it right now. There are listeners, there are viewers, there are people who will be in for a little bit, be in for all, be in for none. And so public speaking now can be showcased on social media. My advice to anyone who wants to get into it is do not look or compare yourself to what a public speaker is in your eyes. You will fail. You are not going to give a TED Talk immediately. You are not going to host or announce for a professional sports franchise immediately. You have to do a tiny little rec league volleyball game in a gymnasium in a community, but you've got to film it. You've got to shoot it. You've got to show us what you're good at. So my advice is document, showcase, and work your way up. I can think back to that red paper clip, trade up meme that happened and blew up the internet a few years ago. You start with a red paper clip, and all of a sudden you own a $500,000 home. You have to, in public speaking and any other job, you have to start with a red paper clip. You are nothing until you're something. If you believe in yourself and you have confidence, you can be something. But don't jump from the red paper clip to the large $500,000 home. Jump from the red paper clip to a pen, to Post-it notes, to a new easy leather chair if you want. You've got to climb that ladder, and you do not get it for free. You've said that in this show. You do not get it for free. You have to put in the work.
And that's something else, Joe. When I first started doing this show 6 years ago, my shows were solo. I was doing my shows on my own. And then when I felt comfortable and confident enough, I started getting guests. And then guests, I've now had shows where I've had 4, 5, 6 guests on my show. I've had to gradually build myself up. Just like with my public speaking opportunities right now, I'm just doing, but that's giving me a valuable experience. And people don't realize, even though it's volunteer work that I'm doing, I'm getting skills out of it. And too many people think, well, if I'm not getting paid for it, what's the point of doing it? But getting volunteering, internships, getting opportunities eventually will get you paid in the end at some point. It's just the skills and the experience are huge.
Yeah, my personal mantra, do what you love what you do, don't work for money. I've said it for years and years and years. Do what you love what you do, don't work for money. Anyone who tries to work for money will often find themselves in disappointment. Obviously, we all have to have a paycheck. Obviously, you can't just do what you love what you do, and exist in a world that charges you money. So I want to be very clear. This is a figurative, but a very important piece of advice. Do what you love means when you're doing something, you're doing it with some passion, some energy, and some engagement into the thing. Loving what you do is very different. We have to love what we do. How many times can we think of those chores, those things in this world, paying our taxes? If you don't love what you do, that's going to happen. But in general, if you do what you love and love what you do, the money will follow, because you're actually getting the fulfillment. We have to stop chasing money as a culture and a society. I really, truly believe the money will come in other forms or other ways. And I do not write me or message me saying, oh, Joe, that sounds all great, but I have to do my menial labor job in order to feed my kids. I get it. So do I. I'm saying don't do the thing you think you love or love what you do for the money, because I promise you the universe will bring you money if you're happy, consciously kind, proudly Canadian. The money will come.
And what I share with students in my public speaking opportunities is my last career. I was grateful. The company employed me for 23 and a half years, and I'm grateful for that. But at the end, I was not happy, and it was time for a work divorce. And I'm taking, and everyone always says when you leave a company, you always think of the negatives. I'm taking the positives, because that former career did employ me for 23 plus and a half years, which was a good long run, but it also gave me the confidence skills in public speaking and how to deal with different people and different circumstances. And also I learned how to communicate, but listening skills. Listening is just as important as talking. In some cases with this show, listening is even more important. So I learned some of my skills from that former career, and I've applied it to this. So I try to take out the positives, even if I left in a work divorce.
Yeah, this is a great outlook in life. You know, if you're at an intersection and someone cuts you off or flips you the bird, we can get angry, we can respond with road rage, or we can learn from our situation. What we're going to learn would depend on that situation. Sometimes what we're learning is simply patience. And sometimes we're learning that we have no control. And I think actually giving up, the older I get, I just turned 50 this past year. The older I get, I start recognizing that we simply don't have control of much, and we want it. We strive for it. We're taught to get it. We're taught to earn and to grow and to climb the corporate ladder and to have. What we're not taught is that we aren't entitled to this stuff. In fact, we're taught that we should be, and we aren't. And so patience is a huge, huge learning, and listening is a great conduit to patience, because when you start to actually listen, you'll start to realize that your opinion and your confirmation bias is loud and clear, and it shouldn't be. Sometimes your confirmation bias, which we all have, and your listening is void.
And by the way, I'm friends with Matthew Shinetti from TSN from the CFL, and he gave me some good advice. He goes, Chris, always be yourself on camera or on air, on radio. But he also said, Chris, if you do make mistakes, don't beat yourself up all over it. If you want to get better in this profession or any career, you also got to learn from your mistakes and see where you can improve on as well.
Well, and what's a mistake, right? What we are the hardest on ourselves. There is that really ugly and negative voice in our head. It starts from the moment we get up in the morning and it goes to bed with us. That self-confidence, that imposter syndrome, what's a mistake? I've made many mistakes, according to other people, on this very show. I'll make more mistakes today as I move through my day. What's a mistake? If I was authentic, if I like what I do what I love, don't work for money, and my intention is good and proudly Canadian, I might add, that's not a mistake. That's exactly who I am. And you can take it or leave it. Your listeners can scroll past. They can stop listening. They can choose to throw hate, which I hope they don't do. If you don't like it, move on. If you don't like living here, if you don't like being a part of this culture or this country, that's okay. See you later. Just don't make it hard for me. Get off my porch.
And one thing too, Joe, I've also learned in the media industry, it's competitive and can be cutthroat. But I also learned too, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. When I reach out to guests, I've been lucky. A majority of them will come on my show, but there's also some that I'm just not their cup of tea. And I've learned not to take it personally and just keep focusing on improving, learning, and also getting other guests to come on. So you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. You can't win everybody over. And I'm hoping some of these people that have said no to me will look at my work in the future. And I've had them come back and actually approach me and say, hey, Chris, we really like your work now. We would like to come on your show. And it's caught me off guard. So I always learn this too, is don't take things personally, because you never know who might you run into in the future in the media industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Every opportunity is a good one. Never walk into a networking room with a bag on your head. Obviously, you have to be visible. You have to be giving. Don't go handing out business cards everywhere you go, proverbially or literally. Nobody is there for a sale. Sometimes they're there for a conversation, and many times they're there to talk about themselves. And so if you are good at networking, public relations, and communications, you will learn that the content is not about you. The content has to be about your followers, because guess what? Your show, your social media, your business plan, your realty office, your mortgage business doesn't exist without customers. So you'd better find a way to make your content interesting to the demographic you're trying to target, because you can be a mortgage professional or a realtor all you want, but if your content is for you, then you're only a mortgage professional or a realtor for you. And I don't think that's how you help people buy homes or save money.
Joe, as we wrap this show up in a few minutes, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Western Canadian Baseball League, and obviously the Gulls had another terrific season. Just thoughts on the final between the Regina Red Sox and the Gulls, who just came up short in the finals. They had another great year.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, we're a collegiate baseball league in Canada. About 75, maybe 70% of our players are typically from the States. They come up in summer keep their arms warm, hit the ball. It's a wood bat league, really, really great league. Hats off to the Regina Red Sox, hadn't won for a number of years. Sylvan Lake Gulls still trying to find that elusive championship, made a huge stride this year, getting past one of our divisional foes to make it to the final. We were within 1 out of the championship, which was devastating. It's been a year of devastation for Canadian hockey, baseball fans, the Blue Jays in Game 7, Team Canada, the silver medal, and if here at home, obviously the Oilers with back-to-back losses. Not a fan, but I can feel for those guys and their fans. And then, of course, our Sylvan Lake Gulls. We made it all the way to the end. We were up 1 game. Then we were up 2 games with a chance to close it. We were best of 3 final. We were up 1. We tied it. They came back and won in Game 3. We were 1 out away. Great season. It only proves to be better for Gulls fans. This market is, as I mentioned earlier in the show, just a really, really great market. Second in attendance in the league, which is incredible. For those of you who don't know, Sylvan Lake is a tiny bedroom community. It's kind of your holiday town, much like Niagara. So it's a place where people come to experience summer and be by the lake, but not a large market for people. So a huge feeder, to fill the stands every night in a holiday town is pretty incredible. So if you want to look it up, sylvanlakegulls.com, really great, good merch too. But we really enjoy bringing it to fans, and we're looking for that elusive championship in 2026.
Just shows you how hard it is to win a championship in any sport these days.
It really is. And credit to our leadership group, credit to the club owners. It is about the fans. I know many say that, but I want you to be clear. There's something special happening here and across the prairies, I might add. The Western Canadian Baseball League, which Jamie Campbell from Blue Jays Central on Sportsnet has talked plenty about. He's a big fan of this league, and not because it's good for PR or good for Blue Jays coverage. It's because he recognizes this is a really, really good baseball league in Canada. We've got 3 players in the World Baseball Classic right now. One, unfortunately, with Czech Republic, who won't advance. One who is playing for Team Canada, Matt Wilkinson, former Okotoks Dogs tugboat, who's doing incredible things, and we hope the best for Canada. And then there's actually one of the coaching staff, one of the bullpen people for Canada as well, formerly WCBL. We've had draft picks with Tampa Bay Rays, with here in Sylvan Lake, New York Yankees. One of our pitchers went to the Yankees program last year. So there's some really, really talented ball players. And I might add, those are Canadians I'm talking about. Canadian-born players playing in a very high percentage U.S. league in Canada, but getting drafted to the majors. So we're pretty stoked about that, to be honest.
Canada's come a long ways in terms of baseball talent and development, and also the coaching as well, I think, has gotten better over the years here in Canada.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you can see that the programs are paying off. Team Canada, unlikely to do things against stacked lineups in the World Baseball Classic, Japan and Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, and obviously the USA. I mean, these are stacked lineups if Canada does something fantastic. But you can tell it's the coaching and it's the development. It's programs like ours and others that allow kids to finally see baseball, competitive baseball in their summer times. And that didn't happen when I grew up. There were baseball towns over on this side of the country, in Trail, BC, in Lethbridge, in Medicine Hat, closer to the border where the sun shines a little longer and the days are warmer. But now we're watching baseball develop in so many other communities in the north of our provinces and across our country. And so when you have that, you have grassroots learning, you have baseball that becomes a part of our culture. Obviously, when the Blue Jays win and other major brands start celebrating the game, no different than tennis and golf, when we have success in our games, then kids and young people, especially young girls, are starting to play baseball more than ever. And I celebrate that.
By the way, women's sports have come a long ways as well, especially with the Professional Women's Hockey League. And also now there's a Professional Women's Baseball League starting up this summer as well.
Yeah, and it's not lost on me that marketing is a huge part of that. We're talking marketing on this program because of my marketing background. We're also talking sports, but we've talked about the entertainment of sports. And I will always reiterate, girls and women in sport is finally getting attention because it's being marketed. It was a absolute travesty, and that's coming from a white privileged male that always could see someone that looked like me on television. So marginalized groups, young women and females, are finally seeing programs where they can go, oh, that looks like me. I can do that too. And so while we're talking sports and we're talking about marginalized groups and we're talking about sort of these political motivated talking points, I want to be very clear. The world is built on marketed realities, on the presence that we're taught to see. And many of that is nefarious. Much of that is false or fake. Much of that is steering or spin. But what we're talking about is showcasing marginalized groups who can finally look at a television or online content and say, that looks like me. Hey, mom. Hey, dad. I want to be able to do that too, because I saw it at the Olympics or the Paralympics, or I saw it on Major League Baseball, or I saw it on the NHL or the PWHL. I think it's so vital that marketing is a part of the conversation. Without marketing, many of your opinions wouldn't even exist. You've been marketed to think that way. You just have to have the ability to be staunch against the confirmation bias.
Could you see in the future, in the next few years, being a Western Canadian Baseball League for women starting up in the next 5 years?
I don't want to put a time on it. There has to be talent, and there has to be, you have to focus on the competition. So the reason the WCBL does well, no different than the Western Hockey League or the NCAA does well, is because they are at the top of their game. One of the best places to play major junior hockey in order to make it to the NHL is either in the Western League, the QMJHL, or in the OHL. That has been proven time and time again because the most draft picks from those leagues go there. And so the same has to be said about any league that might spark up for women. Where is the best place for women right now to play? And the answer, unfortunately, isn't in Western Canada or anywhere in Canada. It's in collegiate leagues in the States. So in order to say we'd get a league or want to develop a league, you need a number of things to fall into place, not the least of which is the opportunity, because they're not coming here just to play for fans in Sylvan Lake or Saskatoon. They're coming here to improve their opportunity to get to the next level. And right now that doesn't exist. The other thing that has to fall into place is owners. Baseball and sports is business. And so it's all nice and wonderful to say, let's have a women's league in Canada, but an ownership group has to fill seats to build a stadium. And stadiums aren't cheap anymore, especially with tariffs and other, ridiculous things that are happening. So no, do I honestly think there's going to be a women's league in Western Canada? No, not in the next 5 years, maybe even not in the next 10 years. Do I think we need one? 100%. But me wanting to need one versus finding 12 teams, maybe 10 at minimum. I don't think you can have one with 8 or 6 or 4 and take it seriously. That's going to take some major development, infrastructure, stadiums, and civic engagement. And right now, unfortunately, unless there's millionaires watching, billionaires potentially, I don't see that happening because someone's got to buy the opportunity to get these women to Canada.
As for the Western Canadian Baseball League, would you like to see expansion in the future? And would you like to see more regular season games and maybe longer playoff series going forward?
Yeah, yes and no. The last point is a tough one. Remember that we're a Canadian Collegiate Baseball League and that these players have contracts and school opportunities almost immediately in August. Many of our players have to report mid-August, which is actually right during our finals. And that's unfair, and our fans don't understand that, but those of us who work in baseball do. So sometimes you'll get 2 teams in the Western Canadian Baseball League final, and they've been decimated in the bullpen or by their lineups because they have to report to Texas A&M or the university in some university in California like the next day. And so longer playoff series will be very, very difficult because, playing in Canada is wonderful for all of our Canadian fans, but this is not their goal. Their goal is to play in the major leagues. Their goal is to go to these schools, to earn their degrees, to earn their opportunities in schooling, but also to make it to the next level. When it comes to expansion, I have a yes and no. Obviously, it sounds great. We have 12 teams in our league right now. It sounds wonderful to maybe someday have 20 or 30, but you also have a watered down talent pool. And so expansion is a very, very, and you have a have not and haves. This happens at the major level, by the way. There's the New York Yankees. They're a have club. And then there's the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Milwaukee Brewers. No disrespect to those clubs. They're just not the New York Yankees, right? In the NHL, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then you have, the Utah Mammoth. So there's a huge, there's this disparity between top and bottom at the highest level. So you can imagine in our league, it's not fair for these major centers to have a team and then these minor tiny farm communities in Saskatchewan to be able to compete at the same dollar value or even experience level, because cup holders are expensive and so are jumbotrons, and not every little farm community can afford that. So I don't think it's a great idea to talk about expansion, to talk about extending, to talk about mimicking or matching major leagues, but at the same time we have to recognize what we are. And a small intercollegiate summer league for players trying to make it to the next level is what we are. So let's keep it that way until we're strong enough to grow.
Joe, as we wrap up this show, thoughts on Canada and the World Classic Baseball? Obviously, they lost last night 4-3 to Panama, and they're now 1-1. So just thoughts on them and Ernie Wett managing this team.
Yeah, first of all, I love that. Being a true blue Canadian, which I've mentioned here many times, I love that the A's were so prominent. And what I mean by that is EHA. They say we say A a lot. Well, if you're watching Canada against Panama, CANADAPANAMA, Panama and Canada have a lot of A's, eh? So that was fun to watch, and unfortunately, we couldn't get it done. I love what Canada is bringing. I love the talent pool up here. I've got to watch some of these players up close and personal. We're a very good club, but as I said earlier, the World Baseball Classic, no different than the FIFA World Cup and other sports leagues on a global stage, very hard to compete. And I'm not sure that Canada has the roster that can make it to the end. All I'd like to do is get out of our pool, show a real good showing in the quarters, maybe make the semifinals, and then anything can happen. But anyone expecting us to win it all in the World Baseball Classic, that's a high expectation, and no disrespect to our team. But Canada is Canada on this stage, and it would be a miracle on the field if we were to make it all the way and win this thing, but not impossible.
Would you like to see this event back in Toronto again, like it was in 2009?
Yeah, obviously, love to have it on Canadian soil. I'd love, as a Westerner, one of the ones that wants to stay here, one of the good Westerners. I think it'd be fun to not just always have everything in Toronto. Again, I know we're maybe different in that culture and our confirmation bias on that, but the Raptors are in Toronto. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills play exhibition games in Toronto. The Blue Jays are Toronto. Everything's Ontario and Toronto in professional sports, but there's plenty out west and even up north that could house this. At the same time, it's the World Professional Baseball Classic. And so I can't imagine the ticket sales for Colombia against Puerto Rico, or Panama against the Netherlands. As someone who works in sports ticketing for many, many years and sports marketing, it's always easy to know that obviously Rogers is sold out for a Team Canada USA game, but as you've seen on the World Baseball Classic, the seats are empty for Colombia against Panama, and so we would have the same problem but worse. And so when it comes down to money and engagement, would I host it in Canada as a brand choice? No, I simply wouldn't because it's not hockey, and that's not fair as a baseball fan. But if you're thinking money, and you should be, I wouldn't host it in Canada. No.
And we only have one minor league baseball team left in Canada, and that's the Vancouver Canadians. It would be nice to see Edmonton get a team again, Calgary get a team again. I really do feel minor league baseball teams, it would be nice to see them come back to Canada. We have one in Ottawa, the Ottawa Lynx. It would be nice to see more teams in Canada.
Yeah, it would. The only problem, Chris, is I don't know when you step outside at the end of October near Halloween. I know when I step outside, it's really, really cold, and we can't afford in domed stadiums at a AAA level. And I'm not making it only about weather, but this is one of those things. Again, it would be nice, but our climate is not conducive to outdoor baseball in October. Unfortunately, it's that I wish it were different. But the Calgary Cannons, the Edmonton Trappers, the Ottawa Lynx, these professional teams very likely, not completely, went south for two reasons. The money I'm talking about, because baseball has already shifted its focus to hockey by October when the playoffs happen and the postseason happens in baseball. And then, of course, the weather. So again, wonderful on paper to say we need more pro, baseball. There's a reason we just simply don't have it. Unless billionaires want to build indoor domed stadiums where roofs open for AAA baseball, I'm going to guess those aren't going to get a lot of taxpayer votes in most towns across our nation.
Yeah, because I've been lucky enough to do some independent freelance media coverage of the Buffalo Bisons, and they start their home schedule in Buffalo at the end of March. And I used to tell them, "Are you guys crazy with Buffalo weather?" But the last couple of years, they've gotten away with it, and they usually end up their season by the end of September with AAA baseball. Personally, I'd like to see at least two more teams in Canada in the future, and hopefully that'll happen. Joe, before we wrap this show up, I just wanted to get your thoughts overall on the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays, because I know you're a huge Blue Jays fan, and their World Series loss to the Dodgers, and how much of an impact that could have on baseball in Canada too, with people seeing the Blue Jays very close to being World Series champions last year.
Yeah, for some people our age, our vintage, we've got to see some successes. I can think back to 2015. I can think back, obviously, to the 91, 92 World Series champions. Certainly, concreted my loyalty for a team. I was at, a upper high school age when the Jays were winning World Series with Robbie Alomar and Johnny O and Joe Carter. And so we're witnessing that for this younger generation. They're going to know the names Ernie Clement and Alejandro Kirk. Obviously, Vladdy, is doing great things and will always be a part of everyone's, connection to that team. But all we have to do is look in the past to see the future. All we have to do is realize what made us a fan of the team or teams that we like. And many times it's in the relationships we have with the players, the superstars, or a big game that had some influence on us. And what the Jays run did for baseball is no different than what tennis is doing with Canadian superstars on the world stage, with the Australian Open, with the Canadian Open, obviously with the US Open and Olympics. Canadians are doing new and better things, both the male and the female side in tennis. We're doing great things in golf. We're doing great things in basketball. And of course, we're doing great things on the ball field now too. And so, it's going to vastly improve enrollment. We've already seen that. Baseball Canada is already talking about a surge in baseball enrollment right now in the spring, whereas soccer, lacrosse, inline, and other sports, obviously, they come and they go. When there's a superstar or there's a run, a playoff run or a postseason run, then we see a flux. So we're going to see a huge influx. And we know this is true because in 2015, when the Blue Jays, went unfortunately all the way to the ALCS and lost to the Texas Rangers, we saw that influx. Right now, those kids are 11 years old. That's from the baby standpoint. But if you consider that the 5-year-olds in 2015, they're now 16 years old. So right now you're going to watch, U16, U20 baseball that are in Canada this summer in your local community. Those kids are a product of the 2015, Superman catch by Kevin Pillar. Those fans are a product of Jose Bautista's bat flip. Those players. So it's really important to think of it. You and I age every year, but in 2015, the Jays did this amazing thing. We now have 16, 17, and 18-year-olds who are the reason they're playing baseball because of that thing. And so I also encourage you to look ahead 20 years from right now. 20 years from right now, those 5-year-olds, those 6-year-olds that were pretending they were Vladdy Jr. in dad's and mom's living room, they're going to be our next generation of ball players.
And by the way, doing some freelance independent coverage of the Buffalo Bisons, I interviewed a lot of these guys down in Buffalo when they're in Toronto, and they're good guys too. And that's the thing, Joe. Being in media too, you get to interview athletes. You get to see another side to them that the fans don't get to see as well. And I've been very fortunate in my opportunities.
Oh, totally. And I envy that. On your side of the country, unlike mine, there's much more professional sports opportunity. You're just a hop, skip, and a jump, provided they'll let us in and be kind to us, to some major and great U.S. Sports cities. Personally, and I don't mind sharing it on your show, I'm not going down there. I have no interest in going down there. I don't feel welcome or safe there. But that's notwithstanding, and that's no disrespect, by the way, to your viewers or listeners who are from the U.S. or who cheer for those teams. I just don't feel safe. And when I don't feel safe, I don't want to go. Not to make it political, but I am envious of your side of the country because you have these opportunities. I can think of times when I would have gone down to Minnesota to watch a Twins game or a Wild game, or over to Detroit to watch the Red Wings or the Tigers. I mean, we don't have that here. Our closest major league city is Seattle, which is a long way away. Obviously, NFL cities and other things similar. So yeah, there's a few different versions of the Western side than the Eastern side when it comes to professional sport.
Joe, I also had to give up some opportunities too because of my political views right now. And I'm just lucky a number of the teams across in the States understand. So with our technology, I can still do some freelance media coverage of the teams, doing it remotely as well. I have not been over there in a year right now, and I do miss my family and my friends and the sports teams, but I made a decision that's best for me too. And I know I had people criticize me for not going to Super Bowl 60. I'm very appreciative of the National Football League, and it's quite an honor, but I made a decision that was best for me. And sometimes in business, in any career you're in, you have to make difficult decisions, and I had to make one for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you use political. I understand the industry, or from the outside perspective, it looks political. I don't consider it political at all to feel unsafe or attacked as a sovereign nation. So while that does fall under the news headline or thumbnail on YouTube for politics, if I don't feel safe somewhere, I'm not going to go there. Same reason I don't travel to North Korea, and that is not a direct comparison, but as an analogy, I don't travel to North Korea because I don't feel safe there. And right now, I don't feel safe as a Canadian traveling across the border. And until that changes, I won't be back.
Absolutely. Hey, Joe, I wanted to get your quick thoughts. Do you feel the Jays can still be contenders this year without Bo Bichette, who signed with the New York Mets?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a winning culture that Schneider has created, and I think that does play a role as someone who's been behind the scenes in locker rooms, dressing rooms, clubhouses, both in hockey and in sports in general, but in baseball. You do have to have a winning culture, and that culture still exists in Toronto. And I know that sounds maybe a little far-fetched to some people who are simply armchair quarterbacks or armchair sports viewers. But once you're in the game, and many of your viewers and listeners have been, you start realizing that there is a believability when the winning culture is in a room. It also dissipates really fast, we're witnessing that with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're witnessing that potentially with the Edmonton Oilers. This isn't me piling on. This is me, being real. There are teams that go through their ebbs and flows. And right now there's a winning culture in Toronto. There is a winning culture in Edmonton. And if you hold on to that winning culture and it exists from the top down, then you can win based on a culture. You obviously need the tools. You need the players in your lineup. And I think the Jays did a reasonably good job. Actually, I think they did a fantastic job with what they were handed with the Bo Bichette contract going to New York. And I don't think you can fault anyone in upper management for filling the way they have. I'm looking forward to the new lineup. There's always a new lineup. There will never be the same lineup. And let's remember that the Jays made their incredible postseason run in 2025 without Bo Bichette. And so I think it's also really important, other than the final, other than Game 7, I think it's important to realize that we do have a lot of power in the lineup, a really good pitching staff, and a winning culture. And I think that can bring success, but the window is closing.
Just look at my Philadelphia Eagles. A year ago, they dominated the city and winning Super Bowl 59, and everybody was talking the Eagles are going to repeat. They're going to be a dynasty. And this year they got put out in the first round by San Francisco at home in Philly, a team they should have beat. So I tell fans every year is different. There's no guarantees you're going to have the same season as the year before. I do think the Blue Jays are set up for success, but it's a long season and many things can happen. But I do think they have the culture there to be competitive again this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the winning culture is there. The lineup still is strong. I think we're going to see some new breakout favorites. Ernie Clement comes to mind. Obviously it was his coming out party for all of us, but he's always been a major leaguer, always been classic, but he's new to the scene. So I'm looking forward to young talent that are starting to move these veterans into this winning culture. And hey, it's hard to win. It is hard to win. There's one winner every year and a whole lot of teams who aren't winners. So, and we're Canada. We're not supposed to be there, even though it's an American and a predominantly non-Canadian roster. We're not supposed to win. So that gives us even more drive to try to win.
I want to give a shout out to the Buffalo Bisons. The Blue Jays have a great farm system, and you got to give them credit. And Casey Candell, who's a former Montreal Expo, does a great job down in Buffalo getting these guys prepared. Because when I saw Ernie Clement and Addison Barger down there, I wasn't sure they'd be major leaguers. And sure enough, a lot of those guys like Davis Schneider, they all came from the AAA Buffalo Bison. So I want to give them a shout out. They are a first-class organization, and that's where it starts, is through the farm system, developing players. And I think the Blue Jays have done a better job of that lately, especially the Buffalo Bisons.
Yeah, I agree with you. Having never visited that stadium, I watch it closely. I agree with you. And I will say, there are many, many great American leadership fans. As much as I have sadness right now for the relationship of our ally, I want to recognize that's not all, and that we still love our American counterparts and friends. And 100%, I agree. I love that organization. They're very, very clearly pro development, grassroots, and the feeder system, and what a difficult place for any feeder team to be. Right when you have the best team in your own league, you have to feed it up the chain and fill your own spots. So that can be very, very difficult for those teams, and I recognize and empathize with that.
Hey, Joe, as we wrap up the show, what's a fun fact about yourself or the province of Alberta, which I'm going to get out there one day? My nephew was just out in BC, and he drove out from here to BC and came through Alberta. So that's my goal, is to get out there one day to Western Canada, specifically Alberta too.
Yeah, remember that Alberta is the home of, the Banff National Park. A lot of the players that play in our league will bring their parents. If they come up from Texas or Kansas or Nevada, they'll come. And if we happen to have an opportunity, even a day trip, you can go see the most magnificent part of Canada, in my opinion, and that's Banff National Park, Jasper. These are all in our backyard. A lot of people think of Alberta as a prairie, province, and certainly we are. But don't get lost in the stereotype of the flatlands of Saskatchewan or Manitoba. With all respect, due respect to those amazing provinces, Alberta has both. We've got some flatlands, the foothills, and then the monstrous and amazing Rocky Mountains that are in our backyard. And so I think a lot of people think of Alberta very differently. Obviously, Alberta has a negative brand on a national frame in many cases. We are a have province. And so in this province, there's a lot of people that don't want to give away any more of their resources or opportunity. I'm not of that ilk. I believe that giving, as you've witnessed in this podcast and anything on my social. So we have a real fractured existence right now. I don't, you're asking what's something unique. I really would encourage anyone who's never been here like you to not judge us for the brand that is represented. And that goes for everything. If we judged Canada based on its brand, you'd think there'd be a beaver, a moose, and a Tim Hortons on every corner.
Good point.
If you live here, that's not true, except for the Tim Hortons part. But The same exists for provinces. Over here, there's negative views of Eastern provinces. I know people like you in Eastern provinces. That's not negative. Those are the views that are perpetuated by marketing. There is a culture that many of you probably think of British Columbia or coastal communities like Halifax or Victoria. Those are stereotypes you've created in your mind until you visit them. Same as Alberta, same as Saskatchewan. Not everyone in Saskatchewan is a farmer. Not everyone in Northwest Territories wears a winter coat 365 days a year. These are stereotypes that we perpetuate, and Alberta has plenty of them. Some deserve it, and many not. So I would encourage all of us Canadians, very specifically, not to judge Alberta like Texas North or Florida North or some political view you've been taught or told to think. Just like I won't do that for you as well, because if I were to believe everything I learned of Ontario, I would judge you for being the center of the universe and everything revolves around you. But that is not true. We are one country, we are one nation, and we are all Canadian. And Canadians welcome other cultures and people with kindness when it's reciprocated.
Absolutely. And by the way, our Premier Doug Ford, not to get into politics, did something for Don Cherry the other day. He gave him an award for the province of Ontario. And whether you like Don Cherry or not, he is proud to be Canadian, and he did a lot of good for hockey as well. So I was kind of glad to see Don Cherry get an award for that as well. And Joe, I do want to get out there because I want to see some Gulls games. And I also want to take a train ride out to Vancouver and go through Western Canada. So that is on my bucket list. And I do want to get out there, and I want to meet you and your daughter Morgan one day and your grandson and see a couple of Gulls games as well. I want to support Canada more. I've been to the States more than my own country, and I want to change that in the next couple of years. And I need to get a Gulls hat too. That's a nice hat.
There's so much to see out here, just like there is out there. And I would love to host you and anyone you bring along. There's just, there's always a place to stay for you. We can make it affordable for you. You just say the word, Chris, and we'll take care of you.
Thank you so much, Joe. And as we wrap up the show, this is a new segment. It's called Ask the Host CDP a Question. Do you have a question to put me on the hot seat as we wrap this up?
Yeah, I do. Chris, are you into collectibles, memorabilia? And if so, what's your most prized possession? Autographed merchandise, jersey, cards, any of that?
Yes, I have a ton of sports memorabilia. I'm running out of room. I would say right now, a Steve Yzerman signed puck, a Steve Yzerman rookie card. But I would say two of my cherished possessions, a Scotty Bowman autographed Red Wings card and a Vladimir Konstantinov card. He signed a card for me before his not fatal, but his serious car accident after their 97 Cup. So I would say Vladimir Konstantinov signed card, Scotty Bowman, and also just being able to meet some of these athletes as well and get to interview them like Matt Dunnigan and Damon Allen. So I've been very, very fortunate and very lucky. My sports collection, unfortunately, my nephew doesn't really have an interest in it. So I'm going to have to figure out one day who I should give it to. But some of my baseball stuff, I can donate it to the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. And if you ever get to Ontario, Joe, you should check out the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame in St. Mary's, Ontario. It's our version of Cooperstown here in Ontario. And Scott Crawford is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And I should put you in touch with him and Lindsay Earle as well. And they have a nice collection of Hall of Fame stuff there as well. And they're proud of Canadian baseball and the history of our game there as well.
Oh, I really love that. Yeah, I follow your stuff online. Would love to get out there. Obviously, I love baseball. I love Canadian baseball. And thanks for sharing about your memorabilia. It sounds like quite the collection.
By the way, last year, Lloyd Moseby was at the Baseball Hall of Fame when they were putting Jose Batista in it. And I met Lloyd Moseby as an 8-year-old child when I lived in the Toronto area. And my dad had a picture of me and Lloyd at Exhibition Stadium. Well, 45 years later, I brought that picture with me and I was able to meet Lloyd and say, "Hey, Lloyd, look, it's me from 45 years later." And he thought it was great. And and I was able to talk to Lloyd Moseby, who was one of my childhood idols, and Jose Batista. So I've been very fortunate, and I just want to give a shout out to the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame as well. And hopefully one day we'll get some Western Canadian Baseball League items in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame too.
That'd be amazing. I know Jamie Campbell collects a lot of it when he comes out this way every summer. He hasn't announced his trip this year, but I'd imagine he's off to visit a few more communities he hasn't been to. Yeah, that's wonderful. I had a Lloyd Moseby poster on my bedroom wall when I was a young kid, so I know exactly about that.
Absolutely. Hey, Joe, finally, where can our audience follow you on social media, your websites, and the best way of contacting you if somebody wants to learn some social media skills and business side of it as well through Joe's social media?
Yeah, no problem. My name is Joe Whitbread. It looks like Whitbread. You can see it at the bottom of the screen there. There's no E in what you're used to seeing as Whitbread. So it's Joe Whitbread. And I'm Joe Whitbread everywhere, actually. At Joe Whitbread is where you can find me. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, if you want to snap me, although there's other, more appropriate channels, X. And then I'm on the new Canadian channels as well. I think putting our money where our mouth is really important. And in this case, no money at all. There's a new social media platform that owns your data in Canada and is a lot like formerly Twitter. It's called capital EH with an exclamation mark. I highly encourage you to look it up, follow. It's free to join. It's a new social media platform. Use it, don't use it, but know that your data is Canadian. If tariffs ever come to digital, which is very likely given the erratic nature of tariffs, again, not to make it political, but we better own our data. And A is one of those platforms. There's others as well. So you can follow me there and everywhere else. And I offer reciprocal kindness. And I keep saying that, but it's really important. If you're kind to me, I'm kind to you. If I'm kind to you, then you got to be kind to me. And that goes both ways. But kindness has to be reciprocal. And that's what being Canadian is all about.
And kindness is free too.
You got that right. So is clicking like, subscribe, and love for Chris. Chris, really, really appreciate what you're doing. I am one of your biggest cheerleaders, as you know, and I wish you much success.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. And it's the guests that make a great talk show. And I've been very lucky and appreciative of all my opportunities. And we'll have to have you back on again, maybe this summer during the Gulls season as well. And congratulations again to Morgan and your family and yourself on being a grandfather and now having a new member of the Gulls family too.
Yeah, I can't wait. Let's do this next time you see me, like I've done in the past on your show. And to all your reviewers, it won't be in my office. It'll be hopefully from the Gulls nest, high above the Sylvan Lake Gulls, where we get to announce baseball games all summer.
Okay, well, Joe, thank you so much. Continued success, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chris. Have a great day.
Thanks, Joe. You too. All right, everyone, that wraps up season 13, episode 14, overall 674 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership here in Guelph. And as we wrap up the show, guys, right now at Barry Cullen Chevrolet, the federal EV rebate is back. You can get up to $5,000 off your purchase of your new Chevy EV. More details are available at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, located at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210 and tell them Chris Palme sent you, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. And again, I want to say thank you to my guest today, Joe Whitbread, for coming on. He is the founder and owner of Joe Social Media. He's also an MC, a public speaker, and he's also the public address announcer for the Western Canadian Baseball's Sylvan Lake Gulls, and you guys should check out the Western Canadian Baseball League as well. Before we wrap up the show, guys, I have another show today at 6:30 tonight, Monday, March 9th, tonight, 6:30. I have Lacrosse Hall of Famer, National Lacrosse League Hall of Famer, National Lacrosse League analyst, and the brother of Brendan Shanahan, Brian Shanahan. Brian Shanahan is going to talk to us about the latest goings on in the National Lacrosse League. The trade deadline is there today on March 9th, and we're going to talk about a little bit about the Buffalo Bandits, who are coming off big wins last week against Saskatchewan and the Toronto Rock. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the Toronto Rock as well, who just had a big win at Vancouver this week. So if you're a fan of indoor lacrosse, the National Lacrosse League, check out Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show tonight at 6:30 with Brian Shanahan as well. And as we wrap up this show, guys, I wanted to mention something else too that's very important to me. The Cambridge and District Humane Society on Saturday, April 11th, 2026, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern, is having a fundraiser at the Cambridge Newfoundland Club located at 1500 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. They're having a Prohibition Speakeasy fundraising event, 1920s theme. Tickets are $75 per ticket. The money goes back into the Cambridge District Humane Society programs, and you can purchase your tickets at cambridgehumanesociety.org or give them a call at 519-623-7722 extension 0. Ask for Kat or Zach, or pop by the Cambridge and District Humane Society at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, right across from the Cambridge Centre Mall. They do a wonderful job getting homeless animals adopted into good homes with families, and hopefully we'll see you at this Prohibition event on Saturday, April 11th, 2026 as well. And they're looking for silent auction prizes. So if you're a business or company and you would like to donate a prize, you can contact Zach at the Cambridge District Humane Society, or give me an email at cpome19@gmail.com. And that is about it for today's show. I want to say thank you to Joe Whitbread for coming on. He's a friend of mine in our show, for coming on here today. And also I want to say thank you to you, the viewer, the listener, for coming on and watching our show or listening to our show. And I really appreciate all the support I have here again. Live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show is live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, X, Instagram, and this show, Live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show, is on audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Good Pods, and wherever podcasts are available. That is about it for today again. Thanks to Joe Whitbread and everyone for watching and listening to the show. And make sure you tune into Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show tonight, 6:30, with Brian Shanahan, as we talk National Lacrosse League action. Have a great afternoon. Have a great afternoon, everybody. And again, thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show, brought to you by the folks at Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership here in Guelph.